Back to Inside Politics. Our guest today, political analyst Lisa Quigley. Lisa, control of the Senate comes down to who wins at least 2 out of the 3 of the races still undecided. Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada. Right now, from what we're seeing, and this is still a fluid situation, votes are still being counted. Democrats look like they have a really good chance to pick up Arizona.
Yep.
Maybe Nevada.
Keep Arizona.
Although that
Not a
keep,
pickup.
That's right. Keep Arizona. And for that matter, keep Nevada, but that's a little uncertain. Does it all come down to Georgia?
It may all come down to Georgia. If Cortez Masto pulls it off in Nevada, then control of the Senate will be determined because we had a pickup in Pennsylvania with John Fetterman. But if she doesn't prevail in Nevada, then yes, the Senate comes down to a runoff in Georgia. Donald
Trump endorsed Herschel Walker, who's a Republican candidate down there in Georgia. Is he going to come back and campaign for Herschel Walker? I mean, he did not do well down there. He lost both those runoff races 2 years ago, and he has a very checkered, even among Republican leaders down there, he's not doing very well. But if he doesn't go down there, what does that say?
Well, I think that it's going to come down to, we don't know. The former president is saying he's going to make a big announcement on December 15th, which is next week. There's a lot to happen between next week and the December 6th runoff. But I think at the end of the day, what turnout in Georgia is going to come down to for Republicans is this a race that will determine control of the Senate? And if it doesn't determine control of the Senate, I don't know what brings them out. Is it Donald Trump? I don't know. It certainly wasn't Governor Kemp, who got a whole lot more votes than Herschel Walker did. And Governor Kemp never mentioned Herschel Walker, never appeared with Herschel Walker. I'm really not sure where the motivation is going to be for Republican voters in December.
Are there leadership recriminations coming in the Senate? Is there going to be a likelihood that Mitch McConnell may not continue to be minority leader?
I can't imagine that. I can't imagine that under any circumstances that he won't continue to be the leader of the Republicans, either as majority leader or as minority leader.
What about the senator from Kentucky? He was head of the GOP effort in the Senate to try to retake the Senate. He didn't make it.
Senator from Florida, Rick Scott? Is that...
No, the one I thought Rand Paul was the person that was the head of that.
Well, Rick Scott was the one who was running the Senate Republican campaign committee. And the reason I remember that is because he's the one who came out with kind of his own agenda for the Senate Republicans, which included reducing Social Security and Medicare. And if, frankly, they're consistent. They, rage against socialism. So I guess if they're going to complain about Social Security and Medicare, they're at least following through with their promises.
On the other end of Pennsylvania Avenue, Joe Biden did not face the shellacking that so many presidents have in their first term midterms. How did that happen, and what does he do with this new political lease on life? Be sure he's going to run for re-election, or maybe not?
He's really, really, really hoping that the Senate stays Democratic and that the House also were to eke it out with maybe even just a couple of seats of a majority. And that way he might be able to move forward an agenda. Otherwise, it's pretty tough. But you know what? There's also a very firm contrast that you'll have between the Republicans who are running one of those chambers and the president. And so at the end of the day, maybe this isn't the worst thing for Joe Biden should he choose to run.
The exit polling on Election Day showed that 2/3 of those that responded to those polls said they don't want Joe Biden to run for re-election. He says he won't make a decision until March, but he must be looking at that 2/3 number and wondering what he's going to do.
Yeah, I'm sure he is, and I don't have any insight on that.
President Trump may make this announcement on November 15th that he's going to run again. A lot of Republicans seem to want to say he shouldn't be doing that or ought to delay it. I've even saw a columnist in the Wall Street Journal saying that if Trump even announces, it means that the Republicans are going to get blown out in 2024. That seems to indicate a lot of Republicans don't want him to announce, but they also think he's going to win if he does get in.
There are a lot of conservative voices, not only elected officials, but also in the media, who do not want to see Donald Trump be the nominee for the party in 2024, but they also acknowledge that he is the most popular leader of their party right now. So it's an interesting dichotomy.
Is former President Trump making this announcement next week that he's going to run not just an effort to get into the race and maybe try to take some credit, although it's going to be hard for him to do for what happened on Tuesday night? Maybe blame, yes, but not credit. But he's also trying to stop or slow down efforts that he might be indicted. To argue, well, look, I'm a presidential candidate, that really makes this really makes this partisan, this really makes this a bad thing to do.
So it is a much more difficult position for the Department of Justice if he is a declared candidate for president to then come in and provide and indict him. But I think that the case can be made that one has to be consistent in applying the law. one of the things I remember is the Sandy Berger affair. Remember, Sandy Berger in the Clinton administration was the former national security advisor, and he went to the Library of Congress and he took documents from the Library of Congress. He actually destroyed those documents, but even just having them on his person was a violation of the law. He was convicted. He was fined $100,000. He did not serve jail time, but compared to what Donald Trump did with in terms of the documents that were held at Mar-a-Lago, I mean, Sandy Berger's offense was minor compared to that.
If Donald Trump is a candidate, does the Justice Department almost have to do a special prosecutor situation in order to do this, so the department's at least got some kind of ability to say we have a hands-off relationship?
Maybe the Department of Justice is on its own timeline. They don't really care when the former president announces his intentions, and I'm pretty confident that they're going to continue with their investigation on the timeline that they think is appropriate for the case.
Here in Tennessee, elections have gone pretty smoothly, but this past 10 days you had a lot of bogus ballots, you had confusion over polling places here, you had other issues for the Davidson County Election Commission. This is now going to be investigated by the state. How important are these investigations, because it didn't really affect that many voters and the election's over?
Yeah, you know, Jim Cooper always says is that when it's a conspiracy or incompetence, it's usually incompetence. And I think in this case with the Davidson County Election Commission, that's what it was. Those are people that are trying to do the job in the best way possible. I really think that they're good actors, but there was some flawed information that the state had that was different than information than the Davidson County Election Commission had. It's really important to figure out how that happened, because it's not fair to voters when they come to vote, like you, to have a ballot that does not actually represent those that would be representing you.
Lisa Quigley, thank you so much for being on the program today.
Thank
It was
you.
a lot of fun for this election, and we'll have more to do in the future.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And thank you for joining us on Inside Politics. We'll be back here again for a future show. If you can't get the politics in the meantime, you can go to the News Channel 5 website. You'll find my Capitol commentary there. New commentary posted every Friday afternoon. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll see you here next time. Goodbye.